I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land from which I'm coming to you from today, the Wurundjeri and Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So hello everyone, thank you so much for spending your lunchtime with us today. If you don't know me already, my name's Lauren and I'm the President of Women in Film and Television Victoria. And I have had the personal pleasure of being aware of the Strong Women series for quite a while now. It's been an absolute joy watching the series develop and go from strength to strength during what has ultimately been a tumultuous time in all of our industries. The team at WIFT VIC have been courting the incredible humans behind the Strong Women series to share their journeys from development through production to distribution on ABC iView with WIFT VIC members for quite a while. And although this couldn't be in person the way that we had originally planned, we're absolutely thrilled to be joined today by the sensational team of strong women that have brought this series to life. And speaking of strong women, a humongous thank you to Esther, who will be your moderator extraordinaire today. Esther is a super experienced factual producer and co-founder of Media Mentors, and you can check her out on LinkedIn. So on that note, thank you all again for supporting WIFT VIC and for being a strong woman in your own right. We love and appreciate you all for exactly who you are. So thank you so much, and over to you, Esther.
Thank you so much, Lauren, and thank you to everyone for joining us. I am beyond excited to talk about this project. Now, a few housekeeping things. We are running this as a Zoom meeting. So can I get you, if you're not speaking, can I get you to put yourself on mute? You can also choose to pin the main speakers. So the main speakers, I'm going to get them to wave, and if you hover on their picture, there is a little three dots. You can click on that and there's an option to pin, and you can pin multiple people, and that will just make sure if you're in gallery view you can see them all the time. So we've got Corinne. Can I get you to give everyone a wave, please, Corinne? Co-creator, director and producer. And Alex, can I get you to give everyone a wave? Also co-creator, director and producer. We are hugely fortunate to have one of the stars of the series, Mariko Whyte. Can I get you to give us a wave, please, Mari? Thank you. And finally, from the ABC, Rachel Robinson, the executive producer. If you could give us a, there we go. Now, I have got a huge load of questions to ask these fantastic people. If there is something you want to ask, pop it in the chat, and if I've not already planned to ask it, I will make sure that I slip it in. So we are going to talk about how the production was made. We're going to talk about the difficulties of getting factual productions and the hard work that Corinne and Alex put into it. And we're also going to get to hear some of the experience of what it's like on the other side of the screen. Let's start with Corinne. Do you want to talk to us a bit about where that idea came from, and how did you encounter strong women as an idea?
Yeah, of course. So actually, Strong Women came together really because of Mari, who's here today. We have a mutual friend in common, and I think we had only met once in person before I tagged along to a strongman competition with this friend to watch Mari in action. And I didn't actually know anything about strongman competitions. I hadn't seen anything like it before. And I was just completely wowed. It was in this small gym. It was kind of packed with people, with families, and there'd be one person lifting at a time, and the whole room was cheering this person on. And when they succeeded with whatever they were doing, picking up this enormous weight, like the whole crowd would erupt and woo in celebration. And I just thought, like, this is such a cool atmosphere. And then I suppose beyond that, it was seeing Mari and the other women in action. I hadn't really seen women lifting that kind of weight before. And Mari in particular, I don't know how heavy it was, but it was this massive Atlas stone, which is really just like a cement ball, and they can weigh up to, we've seen it in competition, 150 kilos. So it's very intense. And Mari is just like, you have to pull it into your body and lift it up and then toss it over a bar. And Mari kind of had it on the bar and she was holding it up with just the weight of her body, and she sort of just did this little like chest bump and pushed it over. And I can still remember the visual of Mari doing that and just being like, wow, look at how strong women are. And I think from there it was just exploring, why haven't we seen more of that? How great is it to see these women in action? Let's share that with other people. And yeah, and then it kind of just took us on a long journey.
One of the things that I've heard, I know that it's really important when you're pitching an idea, developing an idea, is having a connection to the wider world. What was going on that made Strong Women so relevant to an audience now?
Yeah, I mean, I think at that time it was just after the Me Too movement. There's obviously now more than ever lots of discussions about women's rights, women's equality, and health issues. And I think when you think of perhaps why women aren't seen as these strong humans as the way men can be, kind of makes you think about these gender barriers and what's stopping us from doing that. So I think exploring that, we got it working.
I think we do indeed. So Corinne, if you want to finish what you're talking about, and then Denise can share her screen.
Yeah, sure. So I think it was just also like such a great time for women in sport, celebrating all these achievements. And I think through just tackling the sport of strongmen and connecting it to women, we were able to really hopefully further expand on some of these really important discussions that we're having globally and in Australia. So yeah, felt like a really great time to keep exploring it.
I may not look strong, but I am.
You gotta be like fierce, and you gotta be a little bit relentless, aggressive.
I'm not like an angry person, but sometimes we get angry and like you just wanna like smash some stuff,
There's a little bit
Just being able to lift, like you take the focus away from wanting to look skinny or, wanting to have a bikini body.
I think I used to look like that. They look happy, but they might not be having a great time. I really struggled when I was doing bodybuilding. I got diagnosed with really bad body dysmorphia, and I was quite depressed. So strongman was huge for me, and it was another amazing big challenge. And I just found that the strongman community was just so inclusive. No matter what size you were, you were included.
You are beautiful. You are worthy. You are strong. And you've got it in you to overcome whatever challenges come your way.
We're like misfits, and we all just somehow found each other, and it's great.
What a great trailer. What a fantastic trailer. I get chills when I watch it. I think there's something about the power of those women. It feels super inspiring. And we are going to talk in a moment about how beautiful some of the shots in that are, about the production values that you put in. But first we're going to go to Alex. So Alex, you and Corinne didn't actually know each other before you started working together on this project. Can you tell me a bit about what about the project made you go, we are doing this?
So when I first met Corinne, we originally wanted to come together to pitch an idea for AIDC, Vice Australiana, which, so we were looking for a topic for a 20 minutes short to pitch. And when we met the first time, we discussed a lot of topics, and a lot of it was about women's issues in our societies. We were just during the Me Too movement, so it just, I guess, was really in our minds. And yeah, a couple of weeks later, Corinne mentioned that she went to this strongman competition and watched Mari compete, and that was very impressive, and that she thinks there is something there. And yeah, so this is how it started. And I guess for me, I'm really interested in niche topics and talking about people that are not necessarily really represented on screen. And I thought that was definitely a non-mainstream community that I've personally never heard about. The sport itself, and even more women doing it, is just, yeah, very impressive.
Can you just clarify something for us? Because the competition is called Strong Man, but it's still women compete in it. Can you talk to us a little about that?
Yeah, exactly. So sport itself, I guess there has also always been people featuring feats of strength, but the sports itself, as it is today, was created for men. And so that's why it's called Strongman. But it's definitely growing within women. And the name of the sport hasn't changed. And it's something that maybe from our perspective, we always thought was quite interesting, because it's clearly defined as a gendered sport, even though women are competing. But when we talked to a lot of the women in the sport, they were very happy that it's called Strongman and didn't really see an issue in that. So yeah, I don't know if the sport is going to change, but I feel like since we started filming Strong Women, a lot of the women would say they compete in Strong Women. So maybe it will change.
And yeah, it's an interesting one. Now, I think, having talked to you both and to Rachel, I think this film is a real portrait of the level of determination people need in order to make a series. And can you just give me, this number is amazing, but can you just tell me how many hours you think you two have each put into the series?
Well, we did a rough estimate, and I think it's pretty optimistic, but we have been working on it for over 3.5 years. And, sometimes it's been, 1 or 2 days a week, sometimes really part-time, and really at the heart of the production, was more than full-time. So yeah, a rough optimistic estimate will be probably 4,000 hours each. But yeah, that's, I think, still quite optimistic.
It's amazing. It's absolute testament to the dedication of both of you, and I think a real lesson for the rest of us about how hard you need to work to make these films kind of at the beginning of your career. Now, you've both briefly mentioned that the film started off being pitched as a 20-minute show for Vice. Can you talk about the flexibility that you've needed in order to take it on such a journey, and how I know from talking to Rachel, she talked about how flexible you both were and how willing to kind of make the story work in whatever format. Can you talk about how that experience was for you?
Yeah, definitely. So it was supposed to be the shorter 20-minute piece, and it was mainly going to be just focusing on one person, Mari. But then when we met Mari, she introduced us to the community, and we were opened up into this whole strongman world. And we just realized that there was so many other stories out there, and there wasn't anything in Australia yet on strongman. And we actually when we brought it to AIDC that year, that's when it started to first grow a bit of legs on us. And we actually had met with someone else at the ABC who was quite eager about it, and thought it could work great as an online series, a 6x12. And so when we kind of heard that idea, it sort of fitted, I think, with how we could see it as well. And so it wouldn't just be Mari, it'd be Mari and her teammates, shorter online piece, kind of her younger demographic would fit with kind of where we were going already. So yeah, I think over the years, because it took us so long to get production funding, things changed, and what, you know, the market wanted changed. So we kind of had to adapt with it. And I think, and because I guess we had the time to develop it and think those things through and adjust, it worked out well for us. But it definitely, yeah, it grew, like, because in the end it's a 3x30. So it, and another part of that as well is we still wanted to keep online social content. So there's also 3x5 minute social pieces out there as well. So that's even more length. And so I think just having, you know, we kept bringing it to AIDC, we kept taking on board advice we were getting from experienced industry people, and just, yeah, having to bring back what we can, but also trying to maintain, you know, our original vision as well.
So Alex, do you want to talk us through the amount of kind of funding rounds that supported you and the process of that?
Yes, it was a slow and long journey. But after going to AIDC and being suggested by the ADC to turn it into web series, then this format is actually eligible for funding through Screen Australia. So we started with a seed development grant with Screen Australia to help us refine our proposal. And shortly after that, we ran a crowdfunding campaign to film as a character reel. And that was actually very helpful on several levels, because it helped us creating engaging content on social media and starting building our audience there as well. Still, most of the funding we got through crowdfunding, we spent on making the intro sequence in the series. And in hindsight, you know, it was a great investment, because this is, you know, it's just the first footage that you see when you watch the trailer. And it's still used in the series today. And it was just, you know, a great way to see, to show what we were capable of right at the start of our development pieces. And then shortly after that, we applied again through Screen Australia to get some funding to finish filming the character reel and also do some time critical filming. Because one of the challenges in documentary is that, you know, you are not technically in production, but you are still following the lives of the people that you are filming, and something happens that you need to be able to capture. And so that enabled us to do that. And then we had a very slow period where nothing happened much. And we went back to AIDC again, and this is where Corinne met with Rachel. And everyone knows shortly after AIDC, COVID kind of changed everything for everyone. And so, yeah, then it was a bit of a pause again. And finally, as the AIDC released the Fresh Start Fund. And this is when we went back to Rachel asking whether this is something we'll be eligible to apply for. Shortly after that, we got the Fresh Start funding, and that unlocked production funding for Screen Australia, because we were just really missing to have a platform to unlock the funding for production.
Amazing.
And
It's such,
same with Film Victoria too, after it came on board.
Yeah. Such determination that you two kept going. And because I think everyone in this room knows what it's like to apply for a screen agency grant. It's hard work to keep going. Where did you two find, what was the benefit of there being two of you in terms of that resilience?
Massive benefit. I think I joked the other day when someone asked us about that I probably would have given up in the first 6 months if it wasn't for having a partner. Because I think, you know, you do put in tons of applications and you get a lot of no's and then you get some yeses, but it's definitely a roller coaster ride. It can feel like, oh, we're getting some momentum, and then you get knocked back. But also, like, 3.5 years is a really long time. Lots of life things come up. And so just being able to handball over to someone else, take a break, and then regroup and feel refreshed. And I think both Alex and I were just kind of just always both quite strongly passionate about it and plugging away. And yeah, and I just think together as a grind. And then we had Anne Miguel, our other producer, come on board, sort of this little team, and we just kept working and working. But without that support network, oh yeah, it would have been so hard.
Yeah, and sometimes it's also because we are emerging filmmakers. Sometimes we just had so many questions and we just didn't really know which direction we should be taking. So just, you know, being able to discuss any issue we had and just brainstorm what's the next steps was just great.
Where did you find that expert knowledge? Because this is the first, I mean, you've made a 3-part series, which is an incredible achievement and a fantastic calling card for emerging filmmakers. Where did you find your expert knowledge, your insight from?
Well, we had a few people that we were able to contact and ask questions, but at the same time, everyone is extremely busy in this industry. So we had to kind of put together lists of things that we want to ask, and know that when we want to ask something, we only contact people once with a huge list. Rachel will know that. Huge list of questions. Yeah, and also like all the funding bodies, like it was, everyone was quite available to reach out and ask questions before we applied, or if we had any things we were not sure about. And yeah, and some people that we also met at conferences that were a bit more experienced than us. We had a few meetings with them just to chat through where we were at and the question we had.
I think the fact that you both were confident enough to ask for help and to ask people is fantastic, because there are so many experienced professionals out there who are willing to share their knowledge and expertise. And I applaud both of you for reaching out and getting that help, because it's there. Now, we're going to talk about the pandemic in the room, COVID. So, Corinne, I know when we spoke, you said you didn't really want to feature COVID as a character initially. Tell me about that. Tell me about the impact of COVID on your film.
Yeah, I was a bit reluctant or hesitant at first to include COVID, probably a little bit of denial, but obviously when it hit, we were digesting it as people ourselves, and we realized quite quickly, like, oh, this is a massive thing for the participants in this series. So, but obviously, you know, as we learned more about this global pandemic, it was here to stay for a while. And I think too, we had also been developing it for so long, and we had our story kind of narratives, and we knew we wanted to go internationally and film this big competition. We had our mind of what was going to happen, and then that crashed down for us. So, but right away it was like, okay, well, at least have to, you know, bring it in a bit. But there was kind of that question, like, how much, how far do we go into it? And so we, you know, did Zoom interviews with the women right away. But as it kind of progressed, it ended up being really interesting to incorporate COVID, because we were able to kind of look at what happens when a pandemic hits, like, athletes who train really hard, who work towards these goals, who, you know, have their kind of identity and social network into the sport. And March, when COVID hit, is when these big competitions in the world of strongman take place. So Mari was in her kind of peak level as an athlete. And so, yeah, it was just really, it opened us up to these interesting questions, like what happens when that's all taken away? And I think we can all relate to the struggles that the women were faced all of a sudden So in the end, it was good, but I was definitely a reluctant participant in having to change our narratives around it.
It is a beautiful portrait of COVID life in Australia. Like, it's a really interesting snapshot of that we've now got as a record. But Alex, it created a couple of production issues for you, didn't it, in terms of interviewing people? Can you talk about the magic of TV and the magic of interviewing people?
Yeah, so we had planned some interviews that obviously we couldn't do because of COVID, especially in Melbourne with all the lockdown last year. And so we had, there were some things that we just thought were not super important, and we will wait for production funding to, go with a crew and film. And that ended up kind of being a bad decision looking back, because COVID hit, and then we were not able to film those. But the other thing that was quite difficult is that some of our characters ended up moving. So Alira, who was based in Melbourne, she ended up moving to Queensland. And Lee, who we thought we would film in Canberra, and we didn't end up filming because of the fires and then the pandemic. She also moved to Queensland, and we were both stuck in Melbourne. So we ended up having to get a local Queensland crew to cover the filming for us, which was a bit stressful because obviously we hadn't worked with them before, but also it's hard to communicate your vision and what you would like to capture when you are not there on the shoot. So, but I think they did a great job.
Well, I was going to say they did a fantastic job, because it's actually a clip with Lee is your favourite clip in the series, isn't it?
Yeah,
so,
I think it's just amazing what they managed to get, and also how Lee was so willing to make herself vulnerable for the series, even though she only met this two-person crew a couple of times before filming.
I was pacing, I went back to bed, and I tried to listen to some meditation. And I heard Mackenzie screaming, so I kind of sat bolt upright, and she was fast asleep in a crib. And I could hear a baby crying, and I was like, oh my God, I'm actually going crazy. And then I guess my brain just had this little, I don't know, light bulb moment. I lived next to a highway, and my brain just went really quiet, like all the racing thoughts stopped. And I thought, maybe I just need to walk out into the traffic. And everything went really quiet in my mind. And it scared the shit out of me because everything just stopped. And it's the first time that I've kind of had those thoughts. And I went back into my ex-partner and I'm like, I really need help. So I ended up getting a psychologist who specialises in postpartum mums and postnatal depression.
So I need to sort this out. But I just want to
The postpartum phase, no one talks about how the mother feels, and
motherhood is really, really tough. But having constant negative thoughts is abnormal.
and I thought, if I put it out there, surely there's someone else that feels like me. And the response I got was overwhelming.
So it's really important that you get help, and it doesn't mean you're weak. And this is something that I've been struggling with.
It was just the best thing ever, just to get it all out.
Let's take this out now. We don't really need that.
goodness, I can see why it's your favourite clip of the series. I think that encapsulates one of the most magical things about documentary, which is that you get this window into some deeply personal part of somebody's life and the level of honesty that we don't get in day-to-day life. Can you two talk a little bit about that, the importance of relationships between the documentary filmmaker and the contributors? and how you maintain those relationships?
Well, I guess one of the interesting things for us was that it took us quite some time to produce the doco. So we spent a long time with the 4 women, well, the ones locally in the series. We went to a lot of competitions. Mari, we obviously got to know really well, and Karen as well. So I think we developed a really interesting bond with them, like a very close bond. And we were kind of like, you know, in those last kind of interviews, when you're asking some tough questions, you know, it felt quite close and connected to them. And so I think it made a nice space to be able to capture some of those moments. So yeah, so I mean, I suppose when you do a shorter documentary, maybe you don't quite have that opportunity to build quite that connection. Like I really consider the women like friends, and yeah, I don't know. I feel like it was much more of a journey that we went on with them rather than it was a shorter piece. We didn't get to know them so well.
Particularly because you filmed over such a long period of time. Mari, let's bring you in on this. How did you feel? Was that kind of closeness of relationship something you were expecting when you started filming this doco?
Not really. I guess I didn't really know what to expect, but the relationship definitely grew with my connection with Alex and Corinne, and just especially from how gentle they were, how patient they were with questions. We were never really in a rush, and that gave me the space to feel safe to share and to be without judgment, and that constant contact, and it was really helped build the relationship between all of us. And I really do feel like they know a big chunk of who I am. They know a lot of my life, and even though they've heard so much about me, it still gave us opportunities to connect with them and ask them how they were going. I was always very curious to see how they are, what's new or going on in their lives, and celebrate their milestones as well. So that was always really exciting, and it was a cool experience. So now I have more friends in my life, so that's really nice.
What made you want to take part in the documentary?
I just thought it was a really exciting opportunity when I first found out through my good girlfriend, Corinna, that her friend Corinne was interested in doing a documentary on me, on the sport of strongman. I thought, wow, why me to start off with? But then I thought about the bigger picture of how it could impact the next generation of women and men growing up and seeing strong women on their TV screens, and how that would radically change their perspective of women. I thought would be amazing, that I didn't have when I was growing up. I mean, I still had amazing women on my TV screens, and watching Kathy Freeman win gold was one of my huge milestones. It actually encouraged and motivated me to get to a platform of some stage to help encourage the next generation that you can be strong and do something different on my own. But it was a no-brainer for me when they asked. I was like, 100% I'm in. I could see where it would go possibly, and I was fully committed. Like, definitely wanted to help push it forward and get as many people involved and talk to as many people as I could about it, just to get everything rolling.
Excellent. Did you have any understanding of how many shoots there'd be, or?
No, I didn't. I'd done a good amount of photo shoots beforehand for branding and sponsorships, so I knew how long a photo shoot takes to do, but I had no idea how long it would take to film a documentary. And I quickly learned lots of patience and knew to clear my schedule if we were going to do any filming, to make sure I wasn't in a rush to anything. But if I had something involved, I would always let the girls know if I had a strict time frame to stick to. But it was just strict. Someone's just walking outside. My housemate's just walking past my window. But yeah, it was. I didn't really know what to expect, but I went into it with an open mind, willing to learn and give them as much time that they needed, because I knew how crucial it was to get the information that they needed, the questions, and set the scene just right. And I respected the process, and I just kind of let them take the lead in that, and I learned a lot along the way.
How does it feel to see the final product and to see yourself up on screen?
It was pretty incredible, to be honest. It's really special to know that I've contributed to make an impact on the bigger generations and perspectives, and changing the stigma of what it is to be a woman, and that you can be strong and you don't have to be X, Y, and Z and fit into a box. You can be however you want to be and express yourself in highly emotional ways, and that's completely fine. It's actually really good. So it feels pretty incredible to know that that is out there in the world, and so many people that I might never meet get to watch it and have that possibly impact their life in a good way that might motivate them to feel a bit stronger in themselves and trust in who they are, and develop that strong self-belief that they are capable of big things. And I think that's pretty incredible and really sits deep in me. So that's how I think about it.
So you have an insight, being on the contributor side of the camera, that most of us in the room don't have. Is there anything you can tell us as filmmakers that we should remember about how to look after our contributors, and things that maybe Corinne and Alex did really well, or things that you wish you'd known before you undertook this?
I guess the biggest one, and we've spoken about it with the girls as well, is probably time, and understanding a little bit of a better spectrum of how long it may take. So if we say we're booking for an hour, it might take 3 hours or 4 hours. That's okay. It's completely okay. I guess just being able to be in a position where you can set good expectations for what we can expect to set time aside for. Because I've spoken to the other girls as well who were in the films, and yeah, that was one thing that really stuck out, but they did an incredible job. I was very fortunate to be in a position where I usually didn't have things to run off to, so I was happy to clear my schedule from doing past photo shoots. I knew it can take a long time, but yeah, I don't know, maybe I was the most patient out of all of them. I was happy to just kind of sit back and get as much filming in as you needed. I was happy to change things around. But yeah, it's probably a big one to, just to keep in mind for expectations.
Yeah, we are terrible at running over. I've just come off a cooking show shoot where the first day was meant to finish at 4 and we were still cooking at 10. It's like, so
but can I just add one thing?
Yes.
I think like being a little bit like emerging filmmakers, it was also like we thought we might be done in a year or a year and a half or 2 years, and so we didn't really communicate to Mari, by the way, this is going to be a 3.5-year project. And so I think we underestimated a lot of things on our end, or how many times we'd have to film, or so there was lots of learnings on our end that it's like, oh yeah, okay, we have lots to take on board for next time.
Yeah. Now there's a question coming from Margaret, and this is really, I think, actually it's probably for Corinne, Alex and Rachel, is how did you outline the series? Did you plan the narrative elements before going into production, or did you build it all in post?
There was a lot planned before we went into post-production. We already kind of had, because by the time we got a Fresh Start Fund, we already kind of had an idea for a 6x12, and we already had like a narrative per episode. And also by this time, we also, apart from the post-COVID elements, we also had a clear idea of what the story was for each of the participants. So we also had like characters' storylines, but then we still had to rewrite everything again for 3x30. And then obviously it changes in the edit as well. Again.
So Rachel, let's talk to you a little bit about this process. So obviously you encountered the film when it came through for Fresh Start funding, and you were the executive producer, or did you were pitched it at AIDC?
Yeah, no, it came through to me at Cut to the Chase at AIDC, that fateful AIDC before the world got flipped on its head. And it was just an incredibly strong sizzle reel, really, that made me say, yes, absolutely, would love to meet with you. And had a great chat with Corinne, and Corinne followed it up. And, you know, part of the process at the ABC is there's a lot of layers, and I felt quite strongly that this was something we should look into. So especially as we, in my department, which is actually in regional and local, but we do a lot of sport documentaries. So we did the Freeman documentary and Peter Brock and a lot of things like that. And this excited me because it was something completely fresh in the sports space. And I felt like it would just resonate with so many people, obviously mostly women, but you know, in that trailer, there's a lot of stuff. It's not just the athleticism and the breaking body image ideas, but the fact that women feel angry, and, you know, that's okay. I absolutely loved that. I just thought there's so many things in here that people will relate to. So I was very keen to pursue it, but yes, it was the Fresh Start Fund that actually meant that it could happen.
And do you want to talk a bit about how it had to change shape and the lessons from that?
Yeah, well, I actually wasn't aware of the 20-minute version that started. So when it was pitched to me, it was as a short online series, and I could definitely see how it would work like that. But I guess in the time that had originally been pitched, perhaps at the previous AIDC, the kind of research and the thinking about what works, at least on iview, which is absolutely our number one priority, is that we're not really looking to commission something that's just going to live on a third-party platform like YouTube. For us, it's got to work on iview. And the findings were that really, really short form content just wasn't finding much of an audience. And people, when they're going to streamers or watching on demand, usually, they want something that's 20 to 30 minutes or longer to watch. So when I kind of got the go ahead and then spoke to the iview team, I was like, yeah, we're interested in the idea, but for us to really jump on board, we want it to be a bit longer. And being a producer and a director myself, I understand that it's a completely different proposition. And especially so much of the series had already been shot. Reverse engineering stuff is not ideal. And my preference is always that actually the format should be dictated by the content itself, the story. So what suits the story best, not trying to pigeonhole, things into a particular format. But, the more we looked into it, and I'll stop talking in a second because Corinne and Alex know the material the best, but, there was more than enough there. I mean, each of these women's stories had so many layers to it. And just the footage itself was so incredible that we felt like that it could work. But I think it meant a lot more work. Wouldn't you agree, guys? That just in the post-production,
yeah,
it work.
It was a lot of work. It was quite ambitious for characters and animations, and even I think we underestimated how much a sport element is a hard narrative to work into an edit as well. So yeah.
It had to be a sport film from our perspective. It had to be a sport film, but it has to be about more than that. This is about community at its heart, and that really appeals to me.
And So it absolutely appealed to me as well. I watched it. I sat and watched all three back to back, actually. Rachel, what's the audience reaction been like from the ABC's perspective?
Well, it's been really great. I mean, so far it's only available to watch on iview, but I'm confident that at some point it will be on linear broadcast. But yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. I think that we've had a lot of support from many of the arms of the ABC, with ABC Every Day writing articles, and ABC News having ABC News Brekkie promoting it, and a lot of talkback. So, you know, I think that within the ABC, absolutely everybody that I showed the trailer to was like, love this, from the director of my division to, you know, our online team. It's like everyone's like, oh, my wife's going to be into this, or I love this, or whatever. Just so excited that we're doing content like this. And then in terms of audience reaction, well, I haven't actually got the any like direct feedback, but I think all the feedback on socials that we've seen is really positive, and it's definitely smashed its audience expectations on iview in terms of numbers reached. And it's just the beginning, really. It's the sort of thing that will just build momentum, I think, actually.
And because we've got an ABC commissioner here, or an ABC exec here. Be nice. Do you want to just give us a quick overview of what kind of things people need to bring to you if they're bringing an idea?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd make the distinction between whether you're pitching something for development or whether you've got an idea that is developed and you really are looking just to get production money and commissioning. The sizzle reel it can be an expensive thing to put together, but I can't overestimate, you know, how much it helps. It just helps so much to be able to see the visual style that you're looking at. I mean, if you saw the Strong Women trailer, that's what they showed me. And in that, I could see how they were treating social media content, for example, that they had this fantastic animator on board looking at elements of, you know, the Volcano circus, and it just had so many layers to it. I was like, this has high production values. So even though they're emerging filmmakers, they know what they're doing. They've got an aesthetic. That's really great. So a sizzle reel's good. A short pitch document, it's got to have a log line. Basically, if you can't say it in a sentence, then your idea isn't really refined enough yet. So, and this is really something that I need to then pitch it to other people in the ABC as well. I need to say, this is what it is in a nutshell. This is the audience that it's trying to speak to. So really think about who you're appealing to. Have a look at what else we are doing. So whether you're pitching it to me in the regional and local sports space, or whether you're pitching it to my colleagues in arts or the factual division, have a look at what else is currently out there, what we've already made, and think about what you're bringing. And then I guess the question we always get asked is why now? So have a good argument for why this should be made now.
Excellent. Thanks, Rachel. Now, Alex and Corinne, you have been on a 3.5-year journey to produce this. It's amazing. What have you learned? And what are you going to take into your next production?
Well, I guess one thing that we've been sort of saying a lot is it takes much longer than you expect. You know, the funding is tough. As you start filming, the story kind of evolves and is moving while you're still behind the scenes trying to, you know, find where it's going and find the funding. So it's quite the grind to manage those two things. I think for me, I think we were quite ambitious. I think we did take on a lot with 4 participants, and as I was saying, competition and animations and stuff. I mean, I'm obviously very happy that we did, but I think, you know, dialing back if it's your first kind of larger project might be a good way to go, just to simplify a bit. Yeah, and then I think also just making sure that you've got a good team, good resources, and a healthy budget so that, you know, you can tap into more resources and people to help you, because we were such a little team for so long. I think that was definitely what was so much work for us. So just even getting more experienced people on board early, that probably would have helped us move along faster as well.
And Alex, what about you? What learnings are you taking into your next production?
A lot. So I think everything that Corinne said, but then also I feel like I've also been so focused on Strong Women that I haven't really worked on other ideas that I would like to make. And so now the question is, what's next? And I don't really have an answer. So I feel like, when everything is a bit slow, it would have been good to spend more time on developing a bit other ideas and see, because maybe one of them would have been picked up earlier than Strong Woman. So I feel like, having different things on the work would have been good. And definitely I'm going to stress what Corinne said earlier, having a team and, not trying to do everything on your own. It's great.
Oh, absolutely. I am 100% behind you with the team thing. I think it's so much easier when you've got somebody in your corner with you. Now, I can't believe it's 1:58 and we are going to have to finish in 2 minutes, but I really want to play Corinne's favourite clip, because I want to finish on a piece that inspires everybody and it gives me the tingles. And I watched this clip and I thought, it made me want to go and make something myself. Like, it made me want to go out and make something that I really wanted to make. So let's have a look at this last clip before we say thank you and goodbye to everybody.
We're not just participating and being allowed to do it, like we've got our own sport. So I feel like it's evolved completely and it'll only get bigger.
All body shapes, all types of women, older, younger, doing stuff that we've never been able to, see before.
Well, it's a lot more common now to hear the sport strong woman, strong man.
It's sort of trendy, it's cool, it's kind of sexy to be strong. It's accepted.
And taking away the stigma of women being strong.
If you are strong and you do have muscles, you can be feminine as well, and you can be graceful and majestic, and we are both, and we can be all things.
Amazing work. Thank you so much for sharing your stories with us. Mari, thank you so much for coming, and Rachel. I'm going to hand you back over to Lauren.
That's me. Hi, everyone. So I've just dropped a little thank you note because I was worried about time. But thank you so much, absolutely everyone, for participating in WIFT VIC Wednesday. We're hoping to make these lunchtime conversations a more regular thing. So keep an eye on our social media, keep an eye out for everything Media Mentors are doing. They've had a really busy week with a bunch of conversation pieces as well. So make sure you're keeping an eye on their socials. And above all else, please go watch Strong Women immediately. It's available now on ABC iView. I rewatched it all last night and I'm super pumped. So go be awesome. We love you, and stay in touch and encourage everyone to be members. We love new members. So hooray. Thanks, everyone.